Before we get into this, I want to be clear about how I watch Sean Combs' The Reckoning on Netflix. I came in with a clipboard.
Immediately felt like I was a kid again. It unlocked this area of gray matter that I had kind of forgotten about.
For me, the 90s was the best decade, and it's not close. So that whole era of music and pop culture and everything, to me, I just find just incredibly interesting.
Welcome back to Take It Personal. This week is about Sean Combs' The Reckoning, the Netflix documentary, if you haven't heard, and what it feels like to watch a documentary when you've already been paying attention to the subject matter for a long time. I, of course, came in with a long memory and a lot of history with it. Will, a little bit more than Jamie, but that contrast is the conversation. We're talking about pattern, power, authorship, and what happens when a system you trust stops making sense. Let's get into it. And I do. When I watch TV, I do come in with a clipboard generally. I've been in observation mode since I was a child. I'm listening to what people do in public and say in public, and then watching what they do later and being like, oh, that didn't line up at all, did it? So this documentary, it didn't introduce a new habit, but it did test out, what have I been observing my entire life? And then what does it actually mean? And so I was questioning, re-questioning everything along the way. And it'll come up over and over again from that perspective. But I think my relationship is deep. Went to see him, bought the merch, went to the tour, loved it, would do it again. Will, when you watched it, how are you first feeling after one part or two parts?
I've had a moment over the Christmas break of realizing just how much hip hop, rap, R&B that I listen to, partly because it's just I just love how the music hits. But anyway, getting off point. It was pure nostalgia, but the nostalgia is kind of maybe getting raped a little bit. So it was I didn't know how to process most of it as it was coming to me. And also, two quick points that I can hit is that guy, I think it was D1 maybe. He was the Crip gang leader guy. And then Suge Knight, two men who, when I see them on a screen in my home, I feel physically uncomfortable. Like, I feel like I am being physically threatened in that moment. And it's I'm not afraid of a lot of things, and that's not meant to be a brr, alpha male, blah, blah, blah. No, it's a problem. I walk down the wrong alleys. Spiders seem fine to me. Physical reaction. Suge Knight pops up on screen, and I'm like, oh, no, sir. No, sir. Don't. No, you're the good guy to have on your side. Anyway, I don't know if any of that made
Jamie?
sense, but basically what
You,
just
Will.
came out of my mouth is how I felt about it 5 minutes in. I was just I don't know where we're going. I don't know what's happening, but it's a lot. This is also so well done. So fucking well done. Anyway, that's the gist.
So I had to watch it twice because the first time I watched it, and I come from a not knowing very much about the details of the ins and outs of Bad Boy and really truthfully the the hip hop scene, not in its musicians or because I know some of that, but the actual origins and the behind the scenes and the people and all that stuff, I don't know very much about that. So the first time I kind of watched it as almost I liken it to a jellyfish just kind of floating in the stream. They just kind of go with where the stream takes them. And that's kind of how I viewed it the first time. And the second time, I went back to kind of watch it a little more critically and be a little bit more observant of some different things. Because some of it didn't sit right for me. some of the testimonies and some of the things that people were saying and some of the personalities just I just didn't sit right. And my first big observation was, how the fuck did they get this footage? How the fuck did he allow this footage to come out and be used in this kind of thing? And I mean, we get to that, and I understand that now. But that was initially, and it was a tough watch. I mean, and we rolled right into this, and I think I said this to you guys last time. We rolled right into this documentary after watching the Eddie Murphy documentary. So it was like, boom to, wow, yeah, and they're both very, this one it was very gripping. I mean, it was gripping.
Yeah.
That's the right word for it. Entertaining as hell. It was
gripping in many ways.
Yeah. Hold on to your shorts.
I really, there were moments where I thought, oh, this explains a lot. So as someone who understood some things and had seen, like, it was well known that like Mace quit. Mace, one of the best rappers of his era, easily, not even close. He quit and became a pastor and then a podcaster and was like, nope, not music for me. And we all knew that as a sign of like, I'm never getting back into my record label because I'm signed to Bad Boy interminably. And like, we always knew that. But I think the way that people got out of Bad Boy and then got away from the entire music industry in totality, that made a lot more sense now. Because I was like, people have bad record label deals, but like, these people go into hiding. Like, where's Total? I would say for 9-year stretches of time. Where's 112 for 9-year stretches of time? And then they pop back up. And now they're popping back up again. But it explained the whereabouts of these stars from my childhood perspective and then growing into adulthood, especially when you saw legacy acts performing. Like, Aaliyah died early, but Genuine still alive and kicking in Virginia and performing on legacy tours everywhere. He's doing Pony every single night somewhere. So awesome. And so like Cisco and Drew Hill, there are really older groups in the space that are aging, but not if they were from Bad Boy. And I think the documentary, I was like, oh my God, all my legends. Oh God, that's where they were all this time.
It was so that I had that same reaction where I was like, where did all of these guys go? Like, what happened to them? How did they all but I never really spent that much time thinking about it. And now it's like, oh, it's because they were like systematically, contractually screwed in every way possible.
And
yeah,
speaking
I'm
of,
like, I'm still kind of speechless.
You said the R word at the beginning, but it goes without saying. I have never seen so many accusations of widespread sexual abuse universally.
Yeah.
By the end of 4 parts, I was like, well, I mean, there is some freedom in this. I was like, this, if it had a hole, right, he was going to assault it. Like that is
those last two. I think it was the last episode. Those last two, I was like, oh shit.
Yes.
His partner, in the very beginning, and then what was the producer's name? Little Roy?
Little Rod.
Little Rod.
Yeah.
Those two, I was like, wow. I mean, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And that footage of, when Little Rod was talking about, they went down to Miami. And it was just, nonstop.
Yep.
And you see the footage of Puff and you're like, he's out of control.
Yes.
He's like,
the Lil Rod
nobody home
in Miami are the most damning. That's what I was like, oh no. I thought, and part 1 and 2, you think the early morning videos are damning because he seems nuts. But they're like, hold on, we're going to take you down to Miami. And he's like,
hold my beer. Holy shit. But I just, for me, with KK, with, what's her name? The other half of Dirty Money.
Oh, Kalina. Yeah. Kalina, Capricorn and Kalina. Yeah. Dirty Money.
And I kind of feel like with her, I felt bad for her because here she is. This is a woman. She's got kids. She's, this whole thing. So there is that. The producer, the whole time there was, what can I get out of this? I want to get further by doing this. He can take me there, but I have to put up with X, Y, and Z. So it's like there was one, and I can't remember what her name was, the one that prosecuted him for rape. The two that really rocked my world were the woman that he raped early on. I think she's in episode 1 or 2.
Joy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Her case is still pending.
Mm-hmm.
That was a rough one.
Mm-hmm.
I feel really bad. The Cassie story makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit. And then the girl from Making the Band,
Aubrey,
who didn't know she had been raped.
Okay.
All that.
Okay.
Those the people that and again they're trying to get somewhere. It's not that they deserve it, but it's just it's hard. That documentary did a great job of making me feel like, what the fuck am I feeling? And do I feel bad about what I'm feeling? So
that is really poignant. Will and I are having big reactions to everything, but Jamie, one of the things you just did, I have to fight you on it because I was doing the same thing, and it was ranking who I was most upset for.
Yeah.
During it.
Yeah.
And okay, this is where it gets into you're too far down the rabbit hole. I remember being on the treadmill and laughing at a Joe Budden segment that was making fun of Lil Rod's initial lawsuit when it was first filed. And in the lawsuit, it's just explaining exactly what happens in the documentary, but without that context stacked upon itself.
Yeah.
They went away to make a strange experimental R&B album, and Puff Daddy by 2023 was notoriously not going to pay you, but was also still backed by Atlantic Records and Arista and other labels. So everyone was making that decision. I knew that, but I laughed so hard at the way that those cases were released. And no one knew who he was. It was before the album. Really, we just didn't have the context. So I felt very, very bad for him because I think he took a lot of the brunt of the homophobic rants and derision that this case brought up overwhelmingly, especially with this. So one of the people that you didn't mention that was on my ranking of people I feel bad for was the Gigolo. And this I don't know his name. Yeah. And that makes me a bad person in all of this. But my man, I don't know why I needed to shed a tear for my man, but I was like, oh. And I've heard other takes of him where it's like, he seems to hate Cassie so much and like is kind of neutral on Diddy. And I was like, I think he was fighting for his life.
Really quick on that too, and I think where a lot of people, sorry, the dogs are barking. No. Where a lot of people I think get tripped up to and like not necessarily feeling bad for like male sex workers is like you think of it in this context of like, oh, it's a man. Like he's just having fun and getting paid for it. And it's like, no, he is also a sex worker, and his situation could be as bad or worse as any female sex worker you have ever met or known about. So it's like, it's so easy to just be like, my man, but it is not. Like that dude was in a situation that none of us can understand.
And then Aubrey is next for me, but that is because I saw in real time all of it happen on the MTV Making the Band reality show. Mm-hmm. And I was a huge adopter of Dirty Money. So when Aubrey sat there and was like, yeah, so he broke up the group and then he needed to take the entire audience and move it over to another group. And he did that. He just put himself at the center. I was like, oh yeah. And it worked. And actually it was a very helpful inducer for people changing relationships and moving on in 2009, me included. It's like when Danity Kane broke up and Dirty Money came about. I'm just saying, a lot of relationships broke up and a lot of new relationships started in that 2009 to 12 era. And I do think that that was like, oh, I knew what he was doing even in the moment, but the music was so good that I did ignore it. Like Chris Brown had just had the incident with Rihanna. And one of the best songs on those early Dirty Money albums is Chris Brown right after that incident. And I'm like, this is bad. I'm like, he's pouring his heart out in this song and it sounds real, real, but we all know why. This is complicated music. So I felt really bad for Aubrey because I saw it so closely and watched it.
Well, for me, I'll bring an aspect that kind of hit home for me that rings true, and I think it ties a lot into kind of what happened in Hollywood with some of the shenanigans that went on there. In an industry where your whole career depends on whether or not people see you and the right people see you, and what you're willing to do. It was interesting to me. Again, you put yourself in position. This is a person that can take you there and can get you to where you need to get and has a lot of influence. So you're willing to kind of sacrifice some things that you may not normally want to sacrifice. And where I would draw a line and say, no, I'm not doing that, a lot of people are willing to do that. There are 20 dudes that look just like me that are willing to cross that line. So, there's this real, no is a very powerful word. As a young actor, it's very, very difficult to say no. But it's very alluring to those casting directors and producers if you're a dude that does say no. You know what I mean? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not willing to do that. That crosses a line for me. This raises hairs. This goes against what I'm doing. And this documentary brought a lot of that up. Puff was willing to do all those things for you, but you had to take it like a champ from him. You know what I mean? And again, if you wanted to be a rapper, or you wanted to be a hip hop artist, or you wanted to be an R&B singer, you wanted to get with one of the most influential record labels that there is, and a dude that is just so charismatic, and on the outside, I think one of the big things that he did, and you pointed this out, Stephanie, is crossover, right? He transcended hip hop into the greater consciousness of certainly the United States. So you want to be a part of that, but at some point you want to be like, no, I'm not doing that, or no, I'm not. This is not what I want to do. I have to have a little self-respect for myself. But there are 3 dudes behind me that are willing to do that, and so it's that brought up a lot for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and with that, I went into it thinking basically like, how am I going to relate to anybody in this, right? Where it's like I thought about going into the music for a while, and like you can kind of see these certain scenarios like this playing out, right? If you do go into music, right? It's kind of a crazy. It's like the food industry. It's a lot of cocaine. So it's like it's kind of weird. It's kind of so I could kind of see all that stuff. I was like, maybe I can kind of commiserate in that way. And then we met Ken, and I didn't know how deeply his story would hit directly with me. And it made me realize how many people there are at not necessarily the same level of like abuse of what Sean Combs has done and been convicted of, but like it's everywhere. Like people like this are everywhere. Because in a lot of ways, like Ken Burrows, he's like the co-founder, in case you can't remember, of Bad Boy Records. It's like basically just like corporate life. That dude got screwed in corporate life because he didn't read the contract. He got bullied into giving up his shares. He got all these things. And in a lot of ways, it's like that same story of I'm just trying to get to this next level. I'm just trying to get to this next step. This guy seems to have the rocket ship that I can tie to. We're doing it. I'm going to be rich and famous too. It's going to be amazing. And then all of a sudden you turn around one day and it's like, oh, you just screwed me out of everything that I've worked the last 2, 5, 10 years for in my life. And overnight, my life has completely changed. And like his story was one that just hit hard because like I've had some rough goes, nothing like what Ken has seen, but some rough goes in my like business life. And it's just sort of funny. I'm like looking at like maybe I should have just gone into music. It would have been basically the same thing. But yeah, I think it was like one of my big takeaways was just how prevalent and ubiquitous this is. And I feel like we're going to get into some of the other subjects like the jurors and stuff like that later. So I don't want to give it all away yet, but it's just like it's everywhere. It's like all people are like this. Not all people, I'm sorry. There are a lot of very bad people who do this exact shit on micro levels.
I kind of liken it. Sean was very much a cult leader, right? Super charismatic, super energetic, promised the world, delivered to an extent,
Yeah.
right?
That's the other part. Yeah.
And then, you know, the whole like the whole money thing with not paying and that kind of stuff. It wasn't because he didn't have the money. It was because he didn't want to give up the power. You know?
That's what was so interesting.
Yeah,
I
I mean
was
it was a
skipped.
manipulation.
How did they get the footage? It's like
Right.
ultimately
Right.
this whole scaled 35 years of not wanting to pay Kirk and not wanting to have the bad boy business in his name. So it's in Janice and Kirk's name in the first place. And then just never paying any of the artists. Is that just what happened when he went to jail? And then his sons didn't know to pay these guys because they had really damaging footage. But apparently, I caught up on this in the last like couple of days. What we saw was still not the majority of the footage that he had paid. This
I
was
bet.
like a remaining chunk that he never paid them for at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what they have.
So
There's
there's
still
even more out there. Yeah.
that apparent that maybe he did already. I think he already did pay them for some portion, or at least it never made it out there. So like, pay your bills, or at least pay your enemies' bills.
So this is what I was kind of touching on earlier, right? I don't
Yeah,
know how to feel, and it makes me kind of feel weird about it.
yeah.
I am firmly in the camp that I try to believe the victims, take them at their words in any situation, and I don't want to dismiss anything that's being said, right? I mean, because I think it's too easy, it's too quick, it's too well. I need to see the rest of the video situation. What happened before the video started? It kind of drives me crazy. And at the same time, your mother was a crack whore. You grew up with all this. You know Suge Knight. You've been running in these circles. You know how fucking dangerous this is, and you applied for the job. Okay, that's you. You've said that's you. All right. So the outrage or the shock at what's happening around you really shouldn't be surprising. I don't.
He
I
got
don't.
fired in 2012 with the Kid Cudi incident
Mm-hmm.
and was told that she will never work in the industry again
Right.
at all. Her story is that online, she stayed cordial and would do like posts about the good old days with Bad Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until she was subpoenaed did she ever actually talk about the Kid Cudi incident.
Right.
Although Drake or J. Cole absolutely intimated that Puff Daddy had burned up Kid Cudi or Kanye's car for years. They had multiple rappers had said that in songs. And I was like, oh, seems like a thing that everyone knows that they're not saying. And I think the other thing was Kid Cudi. I think there's the trial piece of Capricorn is interesting because I don't think she was believable, as says the two jurors that they got in the documentary. And
Right.
the elements that I was like, oh, this girl was running deep.
Yeah.
But that is just how you feel about her. But I guess Kid Cudi then testifies at the trial and is like, yeah, that happened. no, I'm not upset about it. Bye. And it was very like, well, it seems like all of that story happened. It's just very weird.
Yeah.
And no one wanted to talk about it unless they were subpoenaed. Okay.
So it's like it's so crazy that she would go through all that story and people are like, and this is one of my hugest pet peeves in life too, is when people are like, she was a little emotional. She was a little overly emotional. It's like, no shit. It's like I'd probably be that emotional sitting on a stand having to recount some of like assuming the event is true. And I'm always gonna just assume that someone's story is true on the surface and then we'll pick it through. But like the whole like, oh, she was like so emotional and all these things, like it that killed me, first of all. But to have someone go through that story and then have someone come after her and just matter of fact be like, yeah, yeah, uh-huh. That was true. Yeah, I saw them all. They were there. All right, bye. Like it's fine. Like I didn't die, so I'm cool. Okay.
Did you guys see what
Um,
he wore to trial? He wore a leather jacket and was smoking a cigarette for the public or for the reporters to take like glamour shots of him outside of the courtroom. It was one of, and then Kanye also came. The spectacle that happened at that trial around Kid Cudi, Capricorn, and anyone who might have a name in the industry, I was like, this is the I'm
they,
reading a transcript and there's no way these names are saying what these things are saying, but then there are these pictures that
their
justify.
whole tactic of turning that trial into like, oh, we're at a concert, like, oh, this is just like an event slash party thing was
Family
clearly
reunion.
very successful, like
Yeah.
a very successful tactic to take. So the last thing I'll say on Capricorn and thinking about it is like to play devil's advocate and maybe put some justification behind it. I feel like it could have been with her that like granted, we're only hearing one section of the story in one spot, but it really could be that the whole time she was never really the target of the action. She was always next to the action. So she could always be like, very classically, oh, that's someone else's problem. That's someone else's story. Like that other person is having the thing, like, I'm running in the gang. I get like I'm on the inside, like I'm safe, like I'm a made man, right? So it's like I'm safe from the action. And then it could be in that Kid Cudi story. It may have been the first time where it was like, no, now you are the object. You are no longer a person to him. You are no longer on the inside. Now you are on the outside. And she got kidnapped and she had to go. Like it really like that's the I think maybe not saying like that's really how it probably happened, but like that's one way that I could see her like that story actually playing out in the way that her emotions approach it and like it all goes together. I don't know. What do you guys think?
It begs the question, if you're a bystander and you see it all happening
Oh,
and you don't say shit,
oh, oh.
I mean,
I was
Cassie's getting her ass beat and you just allow it to continue to happen. I mean,
and Kim Porter.
and Kim Porter, yeah, that was the other thing. The first time I watched it, the Kim stuff, it kind of went by
Yeah.
quickly. I didn't catch it quite as much.
Well, that was intentional.
Yeah,
That could have been its own doc into itself. And I was like, oh, I
yeah,
love how they're just
yeah.
over
It,
Kim.
it wasn't until they started focusing on the Cassie stuff, and then when I watched it the second time, I went, "It's a he did it before, and obviously these two women are not the only two that he's done this to. There's no fucking way, or dudes for that matter. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that hotel footage of him dragging Cassie's ass back to the. Oh my god, that's brutal, and that's just the tip of the fucking iceberg. That's what we've
That's
seen.
And
we
dude,
all saw
that one juror, I wanted to we had to pause it and I had to go on I stood up and did like a 5 minute rant around Paige, not at her, about how annoyed I was
I
about
don't
the
know.
male juror that they had on,
I
where
thought you
he's
were
like,
talking about the woman the entire time just now.
he
Because
like, well, we'll get to her, but like
okay,
the dude, like he like literally describes abusive relationships,
Yeah.
like to a T.
Yeah.
I've done enough HR training in my life to know, like, dude, you just described sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and abusive, like domestic abusive relationships, and then followed it up with like, but that's between the two of them. I'm like, are you like
Yeah.
a small town cop from the 50s?
Yeah.
What is happening? Like I lost my mind in that moment because I was like, Jesus Christ, people like this, they really do still exist.
Oh yeah.
They really, really do still exist and think that just like, oh, it was a lover's quarrel. The fuck? No, it was not. She got her ass beat at a hotel. What the
He
fuck,
said a quote,
man?
and I can't stop thinking about the quote because I'd never heard it before. But he was like, it's like a clap. You can't have one hand to clap.
Yeah.
And I was like, the fuck? You can have one hand to smack the shit out of
Yeah.
someone, though. I was like, what is he
Yeah.
saying? And he's like, oh no, this relationship, they were both coming back to each other. So it was like a clap. And I was like, that is not how sound
Nope.
works. It can go one way. It was
Sir,
upsetting.
you just described quid pro quo sexual abuse and harassment. You just described it. Well done, sir. You will be the face of our next HR video. Thank you.
Okay. And why gender is so important in our description
Oh.
still in America is because I would have said the same rant to you about the female juror. The second she said that he nods his head a lot because he often did that on Making the Band, and I would often see him smiling and nodding when he was really getting into what he was listening to. That was like a natural thing he did. I was like, I hate her. She absolutely got her way onto this juror. I think she must be paid for. And then I ended up on Reddit for 2.5 hours and I found the picture of them together at some award show a decade before.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not. I'll put it in the show notes. She met him
Holy
before.
shit.
And that is the stacking that women can do. That was one of the things where I was like, this is a female director. She had final edit because she gave us all of the hints that this jury was a mess, but we still had more research to do. I was shocked when people were like, "Oh, that's that bitch who was on the documentary at this meet and greet." Like she stood in line to meet him in the last decade, and she also happened to be on the jury. And
So
I
do
was
you
like,
think let me just a finer
please,
clarification for me.
please.
Are you of the opinion that she was just a super fan and was starstruck and would have done anything for him? Or do you think his defense team aggressively sought her out and tried to get her on the jury in a, John Grisham Rainmaker sort of runaway jury situation?
I think that jury selection took a very long time. And the entire time, I was like, how would you identify a Black American who wasn't greatly impacted by Sean Combs? Unless they were directly raped, he is one of the most important cultural touchstones of most Black Americans' lives in the last 45 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they were going to need to be older is one of the things you were going to have to jump out the gate with. And I did not see that on the jury pool. I was like, you would have to have Black men that are over 70 and they're dead. Like that's not a thing. So like, who is on this jury pool? And then they had to change out jurors a couple of times. So I watched that during the trial. I don't know what happened, but I know it was not an easy jury to pull together. It took them a long time and they had to redo it. I do know that.
Didn't they mention that, and I could have just made this up, but I feel like they mentioned that the jurors, for the most part, were starstruck by him. That they were in the presence of something greater than a normal human being.
I think that's what I.
By the way, those courtroom drawings of him are just, those are terrifying.
Koala.
Oh
He looked like a
shit!
little zoo animal. I was like,
It's like,
ah.
what? What is happening with this?
You know what? It made him seem like an approachable zoo animal, though, with the eyes. There was something about it where I was like, "That is that disarming?"
He
Or
looks
does
like
that?
the Jaimin Hunsu character in Guardians of the Galaxy with the crazy.
Mm,
I mean, he just looks nuts. Yeah,
I'll go with you. That helps.
I was like,
Wow.
God damn! Oh shit! Whoa! But anyway,
So
Um,
I think the answer to your question though, Jamie, is both.
yeah.
Where it's like, was she just a super fan, or did they figure out how to get her on the jury? I think it's both. Like, if the way she described that being on the jury, I mean, it sounded like she was at a concert and she
It
had
did.
like second row seats.
Yeah,
She'd be like, "Oh,
she was
he'd make eye
glowing.
contact with me, and
Yep.
we'd both nod about something, and you could tell when he didn't like stuff. It was like,
like a normal person would. Like and when Alec, the director, pushed, she was like, well, "What's an example?" And that's when she was like, "Oh, we didn't believe Capricorn." It's like, oh shit, okay.
we didn't believe it. Sean and me,
Yeah,
you
me and
know us."
Sean, he looked back and was like, "Isn't that silly?" And I said, "Yeah, Sean," with my eyes. That's what I heard in the documentary. Not,
Yeah.
it was amazing.
I would just
Yeah.
like to note that in my notes, I have this is the whole section about the jury. I have livid written here and I was livid written over here.
So much lividity.
I was
So
so
much
livid.
lividity in the position that he's in.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. But we were talking about how to me he played really very much like a cult leader, and how you can get
Mm.
these people to jump on board and do this kind of thing.
Freshman.
And for me, I worked with a director here in town of a local production company. And I was just, we got in, we made this cool little short, and I loved everything about this production company, and everything was awesome. We had a kind of a wrap party, and I told my wife before we went, I was like, "You're coming with me. I need you to be my clear eyes. I need you to look at all of these people and tell me if I'm swallowing the Kool-Aid, and make sure that this is not like this is all on the up and up, because I am throwing myself emotionally in with this crowd because I believe strongly in what we can accomplish in this, environment of creation and all these people, but I might be wrong." And I need you. I might be looking with some rosy ass glasses.
I think you're right. He helped the community. It was community driven and Black owned. But I think the crossing over mechanism with him was so much different. It's what put him in some people's minds in Barry Gordy, Quincy Jones territory, where it was like, no, he's been able to make hits with Bieber or amongst Bieber's team. He's able to make hits with Nicki if he had to. There was this like he's making money on white America. So like it's the black dollar is fine, but we really don't give a fuck about it unless we're making money off of you, because that's where the real money is, because there isn't enough of us to make more. And like that's what the whole thing is. So like Sean John was amazing. But one of the things that made it amazing is that Channing Tatum was one of the first models on Sean John. And no one knew who the fuck beautiful Channing Tatum was with his blue eyes and his Magic Mike body before that. But he was the Sean John model. And it just meant so much to people, and white cool wiggers, because we used to be able to call them that.
African American, please.
African Americans, you know them, you love them.
Thank you.
I dated them. I'll have them forever. I think the documentary did a good job of distinguishing him being A&R and him being producer.
Yeah.
But up until this documentary, that myth had been very blurred, kind of by Jodeci and Mary J. Blige more than the bad boy people. It was the early group when he was at Uptown that made his myth and still kept it up with it. And it was like, oh, he made all of these things. But yeah.
Can you, speaking of those two, can you explain why neither of them are anywhere near this documentary?
Because protection of our legends is so important, and I will kill you if you touch Casey, JoJo, Devontae, or Mary J. Blige. I will stab you. And I listened to Fiendin' for 25 minutes before this entire conversation started. Diary of a Mad Black Man is one of the perfect R&B albums ever. What's the 411? I'll die on that hill.
So am I completely off on this? But didn't I understand, or did I come to understand that part of why one of the reasons that 50 Cent hates Puffy so much is because 50 Cent is actually relatively close with Mary J. Blige, and he has come to find out everything that she has been through, and that is part of the fuel of
Sounds like a documentary.
the petty
I found it
revenge.
interesting that she was not mentioned significantly throughout at all in the documentary.
Okay.
I don't remember her
And-
name coming up at all. Did it?
It didn't. It didn't. They used a scene of him saying happy birthday. But that's how messed up it was. I went and counted because I was like, wait, so we're never going to reference Mary J. Blige or Jodeci ever after part one? And they really didn't. They were like, no, he did a thing. It's over.
If you were to put out, like you were saying, if you were to put out a documentary chronicling all of these production companies and the artists and the kind of the hip hop R&B music industry tree and where the branches and roots all go, I think that would be just insanely interesting to me.
That's
insanely interesting to me. Now, did I see? Am I dreaming this? But early on in the first episode or two, did I see a couple of like? I think I may have seen KRS-One. Was he in there somewhere?
Eric Sermon was in it.
Yeah. There were a couple of heavy hitter old school dudes that were in there. Now, were they associated with Bad Boy or were they pre-Bad Boy?
Pre.
I mean, obviously the company came after they did their thing. Well,
but did they ever sign?
Yeah, were they a part of making making Bad Boy?
No, to me it felt like Eric Sermon and the people who were early were used to explain what Puff Daddy was before it was Puff Daddy.
Okay,
when he was the Sean Combs at Uptown,
right,
and trying to figure it out under Andre Harrell. That's what it felt like their role was in it. And I think Mark Curry, who was the guy who was like, oh, I was writing all of his lyrics and yelling at him that he didn't know how to do the Godzilla song. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
So mean.
That was good.
Like,
that was phenomenal. He got emotional too. He got
emotional.
He got
one of those
emotional.
People that published, he self-published a book in 2012, like long time ago, and was like, Diddy is the devil and he ruined my life. And it was like, he's just put it out there. And like, we've all known the Mark Curry story for years because it also aligned with Shine going to jail. And it was like this era of like,
that too.
Shine went to jail.
Yeah.
Ace went to Jesus. Mark Curry wrote a book and was like, Diddy is the devil. The girls from Total got married and won't talk to people publicly. That's what the feeling was by 2015. So yeah, Mark Curry. I wish he just had a whole doc. Like,
I loved him. I wanted so much more of him. I was like, this guy is like Thai level spice, and I need more of it. Yeah.
See my guy. I just the Godzilla song was great. Well, this was interesting.
Yeah. That was fun. It was fun. I love when we can kind of, we have these cultural moments that we can all kind of get on board, and that's the beautiful part about having these three vastly different viewpoints too, right?
That's it for this episode of Take It Personal. If you want more from us, head to takeitpersonalpodcast.com. That's our home base for our full show, writing, clips, and everything else we're building. You can also follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at takeitpersonal_podcast. We'll see you soon.